Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vladimír Bartovic and I am Director of Europeum Institute for European Policy in Prague. And it is my honor to welcome you on behalf of the organizers, the Institute of International Relations Prague and Europeum Institute for European Policy, to the Prague European Summit 2018 edition. It was back in 2015 when we decided to start and we organized an international conference called Institutions Fit for the Challenges, External Challenges. And the aim of this conference was to explore the opportunity whether there is a demand and whether Prague could become a place where a high-level debate on the current and future challenges of the European Union could take place. The organization committee, the strategic partners, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic and Office of the Government of the Czech Republic, together with the European Commission representation in Prague, and together with the International Program Board of the Prague European Summit, we have together decided that yes, it is worth to try and to start with the Prague European Summit. All of the 4 editions taking place so far were organized in very different circumstances, starting with the year 2015, when the migration crisis was peaking, in 2016 with a fresh decision on the Brexit, and 2017 after the decision of the Bratislava summit to take reflection of the current state of the Union, until today, when we are in the process of charting way forward for the EU. Recently, the European Commission prepared its roadmap for more united, stronger and more democratic union, and the European Union, the member state leaders, has adopted the leaders' agenda, debating the current and the future challenges of the European Union. In less than 10 days, the European Council meeting will debate extremely important issues of migration and asylum, of Eurozone, of Brexit, and of multi-annual financial perspective. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker last year said that the wind is back in Europe's sails. But for how long? For how long the window of opportunity will be open for the European Union to take steps? There are many risks around, starting, for example, with the blooming transatlantic trade war, with the elections in individual member states of the European Union. So there is a consensus that still we are in the moment when the citizens' trust towards the European Union is high enough, the economy of the member states of the European Union is blooming, blossoming, so it is still time to take decisions. The Prague European Summit will debate these challenges. The concrete agenda will be introduced by my colleague, Ondřej Dittrich. But let me just, at the end of my introductory speech, wish all of us a fruitful almost three days of debates. And I hope that at the end, we will be able to draw from the summit and from its deliberations also recommendations for our leaders, for the institutions, for the member states, how to proceed and how to deliver the reforms the EU desperately needs. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be joining Vlado Bartovic in welcoming you all sincerely at this year's Prague European Summit. Europe is a political community. It's an arena where recognized competing interests meet and need to be balanced. But it's also a community of faith, as Edmund Burke called it. There is such a thing as a Commonwealth of Europe. And the fate of this Commonwealth is very much in question, and the debate on its future is much required and needed. It's all the more needed and timely since the sense of acute crisis of European community has finally withered, but that said, uncertainty remains as the EU is to become a union of one less. Trust in the public institutions is challenged across the continent, empowering prophets of easy solutions to complex problems. The breakdown of agreement about reality is now, as Salman Rushdie has recently put it, the most significant reality on its own. And the external environment is not short on challenges either. To successfully meet these challenges and emerge stronger from the trials of the day, the EU needs to avert political decay, adapt its institutions, and steer the world outside toward positive change, while responsibly and sensitively managing relevant risks. That, of course, is no mean task, and a condition of success is looking beyond the horizons of what we know in a true dialogue that opens the way toward deeper understanding. And the Prague European Summit has become an established forum for such dialogue, a platform that engages pertinent issues we face in a forum where politicians and public servants meet academics, journalists, businessmen, and civil society representatives. And I'm very happy to report that we have gathered an impressive array of academics, practicing and retired politicians, businessmen, representatives of civil society, who will tackle such pertinent issues as exclusionary populism, whether it is declining, resurgent, or perhaps most worryingly, gradually normalized in political mainstream, the prospect of EU strategic autonomy and, more broadly, its place in the world of moving sands, geopolitical sands, if you will, its role in the neighborhood, both in the East and the South, or deepening of defense cooperation, as well as the future of labor in face of fast-paced technological change, and the impacts of related trends on European societies, ramifications of the new financial framework, or the dynamic of the transatlantic relationship. This summit would not be possible had it not been for partners such as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, our strategic partner, the International Visegrad Fund, European Commission, Office of the Government, Open Society Foundation, Stratos Auto, the business partner, Prague, the city of Prague, or Hans Seidel Stiftung, and many, many others. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me say again that it's a great pleasure to be welcoming you on behalf of all the organizers at this year's Prague European Summit, and I wish you all productive and enjoyable deliberations. And with that said, please let me welcome to the stand Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Mr. Andrej Babiš.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for a privilege to open this conference. European Union is facing many crises and challenges simultaneously on many fronts. In some respects, the situation is quite critical. The biggest EU problem still remains illegal migration, even though the tide of illegal migrants is lower than during the peak of the crisis. EU still doesn't know if its goal is to prevent illegal migration or to send to Europe everyone who jumps to the boat few meters from an African coast. There are still some countries which don't give up the idea of mandatory redistribution of migrants. There is still many who don't realize that the first and foremost goal is to protect the outer border of European Sea. This is the responsibility of border countries of Southern Europe. The rest of Europe should contribute and must contribute financially. We need to be able to defend ourselves on our external European borders, especially the sea borders. Frontex should help the fight illegal smugglers and others who profit from illegal migration. It should help to destroy these mafia rings. Those who have a right for asylum should wait out of the EU for the solution of their particular cases. There are still huge differences in views of migration. Tolerance of illegal migration creates political divisions among EU countries and within EU countries. These divisions and differences led to a rise of nationalism and political extremism. Recent disputes over migration in Germany leads to proposals of closing borders and the renewal of border controls, which is unacceptable for us. Success of our economies is hugely dependent on smooth functioning of Schengen system of open borders. The EU wasn't able to solve the problems, whether it's in the Middle East or elsewhere in our neighborhoods, other world. Powers make the decisions. These world powers make decisions instead of us. It's Europe that bears the consequences, lately especially in form of waves of migration. We should have already long ago been sitting with the world powers and should have been dealing with the peace process in Syria to create a Marshall Plan for Syria. How come that we don't have any tools of this kind of diplomacy? Czech Republic wants to be active in finding solutions. We are ready to contribute logistically and financially. We are strongly supporting proper protection of EU outer borders and hotspots for asylum seekers out of EU territory. There is a talk about the need of further integration of EU, but our opinion is that EU should first finish and deepen 4 basic freedoms, which stood at the core of the project: freedom of movement of goods, capital, services, and labor. We are unfortunately witnessing some tendencies to disintegrate the single market. This is, for instance, the case of EU legislation which concerns posted workers. Idea of the same wage at the same place is in opposition to the principle of single market, and we refuse it. The internal market was introduced by Commission President Jacques Delors already 30 years ago in 1987, and it is still not completed. That's why I would like that the new Commission President come up with the actual action plan for the internal market. The EU must first and foremost focus on the completion of the internal market in all areas. A lot of attention has lately been paid to the future of the Eurozone. We are still short of consensus on how to reform it. There is a clear division between the northern countries, who want strict rules and penalties, and the southern countries, who call for more redistribution and fiscal and financial solidarity. We have never said that we don't intend to join the Eurozone. We can and we will discuss our membership once it deals with its legacy issues, its overdebtedness, and stabilize its public finances, and once it's clear how it will be developed in the future. Our interest is stable, strong, and secure union, and within the Czech Republic must be actively and coherently. Last but not least, the topic that arises from all already mentioned is the budget proposal from the next multi-annual financial framework. I would like to stress that changing and challenging world needs customary and flexible solutions. In order to deliver them, we need tools enabling them. The Union's budget will lack resources due to Brexit, and therefore the Union's priorities will need better targeted funding, especially when relating to border control and security. Czech Republic strongly recommends that the next MFF leaves more decision-making tools within the shares management to the member state, together with flexibility mechanisms allowing the member state tackle the priority where needed or desired. The member states are able to efficiently follow the needs of its citizens, prepare customary solutions, taking account of all other national actions, thus creating higher added value and synergies. The budget should be more flexible and allow higher transfer between headings while respecting the aims to be accomplished by the means that are the most efficient on each member state. The same goals can be achieved through different approaches, using different types of funding in different time. We would like the budget of the next MFF to respect that, allowing the member state to use the EU funding in a flexible way to secure the highest added value possible while respecting the core needs of its citizens. Today, the EU is without any doubt an economic and political framework for the Czech Republic. Czech citizens, and not only Czech citizens, have clear expectation that the EU will be as open as possible and without barriers inside. At the same time, they expect that the EU will be strong on the outside, that will manage to protect ourselves against the security threats that spring up like mushrooms at our common European borders. And we will be able to solve the problems that concern us. The basis of the changes are the currently being discussed in Europe should be an open dialogue with citizens. In the past couple of years, we have been witnessing the crisis on the public trust across the whole Europe. The Euroscepticism is still relatively high in some member states, including the Czech Republic. The results of the recent Eurobarometer survey indicates that the situation is slowly improving and citizens are again increasingly optimistic about the future of Europe. That's why it is so important to discuss the future with them. The EU belongs to its citizens, it influences the life and us all on daily basis. Opinions, attitudes, as well as concerns of our citizens must be then taken into account in decision-making on European level. We shall not allow for the proposals that the citizens strongly disagree with to be adopted, even if it will be the citizen from the single member state. Lately, searching for power solution on the EU level has become regular, and it is a crucial problem for the future. Important decisions for the future of the EU cannot be taken by power outvoting that we saw in the case of quotas. The motto of EU is united in diversity. In my view, this diversity lies in the wide range of opinions and cultural differences that become especially apparent in some areas. To unite the European nations in this area takes time. Only by involving our citizens in making of the future we can increase their support and trust in the European Union and thereby bring it closer to them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Allow me to wish you 3 successful days. I believe they will be filled with the inspiring debates, and I'm looking forward to seeing you their results. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome on the floor our second keynote address, which will be delivered by European Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality, Věra Jourová.
Mr. Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to be here in Prague, and I'm happy also to be together with you today here in this beautiful Lobkowicz Palace to talk about Europe and to talk about our place in Europe. The history of this 600-year-old place and the Lobkowicz family is closely linked to the history of Central and Eastern Europe. Confiscated by Nazis, and then by communists, returned to the family only in 1989, after we have regained freedom and independence again. And today it serves as a venue where we can talk about the future of Europe, the European Union, and of the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic that is a full and proud member of the community. We are not reminding ourselves often enough that we are members whose debates and contributions shape the future of united Europe. Václav Havel put this relationship between the Czechia and Europe very well. He said, "If I feel European, it does not mean I have stopped being a Czech. It is the opposite. As a Czech, I also am an European." Poetically said, Europe is motherland of our motherlands. Europeans have enjoyed 7 decades of peace and freedom in an enlarged democratic union of 500 million citizens with one of the world's most prosperous economies. But as we all know, Europe stands now at the crossroads. Some of the old problems are gone, but multiple challenges have shaken our union's foundations. With the rise of nationalism, economic crisis, and multiple threats to our security and rights, and the increased feeling of fear and uncertainty, the people question the ability of all politicians and established institutions to solve their real problems. The geopolitical situation and tensions among old allies, Brexit and shift towards more inward-looking and protectionist policies only increase this feeling of instability. Despite of what some people say, the European Union is aware of those challenges and tries to respond to make Europe better for its citizens. A Europe that protects, empowers, and defends its citizens. A Europe that solves the problems of real people and is able to respond in time to the very dynamic nature of the challenges of our time. But before we can find a common way of addressing those problems, we should ask ourselves, what is it that we in the European Union have in common? What is the common denominator that should guide in finding the right answers? I believe that the glue that holds us together is our values. Yes, our union is a major economic power with unparalleled levels of social protection and welfare, but it is also a union of values where we cherish our freedom, our democracy, equality, and the rule of law. These are the foundations for a strong Europe. Standing up for our values and what is right can be and is difficult. We have seen recent threats in the real and also in digital world that have put our values to a test. So keeping that in mind, allow me discuss what I find the most burning problems that exist today and what can we do about it? What must we do about it? As Mr. Prime Minister already said, unprecedented migration is one of the challenges that is extremely divisive and puts our values to a real test. We see that there is a lack of confidence between the member states that the other state will do what they agreed to do to find a solution. Indeed, Italy and Greece for a very long time complained and said, "You are leaving us alone. We need to find a solution. The current system does not work. We are swamped. We are overwhelmed by the number of refugees arriving." And then of course, we arrived at a situation of waving through, and this led to a lot of suspicion in other member states. They are not doing their job. They are waving through refugees in large numbers. So there is no state that can claim to be completely innocent in the situation we have found ourselves now. And I can only tell you today that also the Commission made mistakes. As long as we keep refusing the idea that we have a collective problem that can only be tackled with collective solutions, we will not find a solution. As long as member states just stick to their own solutions and say we are the only ones who are right, and as long as the rest of the Union does not do what we do, we will not find a solution, and I'm afraid we will fail collectively. The size and dynamics of the migration challenge means that calls for building walls are vain, especially walls in the middle of the seas. We will not stop the pressure only if we act together as Europeans, and in Africa and other migration sources areas, we will be able to stem the stream by uprooting the causes of migration. The young Africans, Afghans and others need to see future, prosperity and safety in their own countries. We must collectively build up stronger protection of our external borders. If we finally devise a common European asylum policy, if we finally make headway in having agreements with the countries of origin so that they take back the citizens, if we finally have a realistic plan of investment in Africa so that Africa develops in a way that makes people want to stay in Africa. These all are tasks on which the Commission and other institutions in Brussels work very hard. The only way we find a sustainable solution for the migration issue, which will not go away whatever we do, is if we do all these things at the same time. And on integration of refugees, I don't believe it is enough to say refugees welcome. There needs to be a plan and proper resources allocated to that. Successful integration is the key to maximizing the benefits of migration and minimize the fears of the people. But that should be a two-way process. On the one hand, refugees or migrants must identify with the values of the host society. On the other hand, the host society must proactively reach out to help them. Another challenge for Europe and its unity is upholding the rule of law. This might seem abstract, but the rule of law is a bedrock of European democracies, and it is one of the core values of the European Union, as an effective rule of law is fundamental for the respect of all values. Without the rule of law, none of us can be certain if the EU rights and laws are guaranteed and implemented. It affects corruption, trust to the people into institutions, and eventually puts in doubt the results of our elections. As guardian of the treaties, the European Commission has an important role to play when EU rules are not respected. And the recent and next period is also dominated by Brexit. It is a great achievement that so far the EU27 managed to stay united and speak with one voice of Brexit, and it will be good if this remains the fact, and even better if we maintain a good relationship with the UK outside of the Community of Union, in particular concerning the security cooperation. We will still remain partners with our British friends. Speaking about keeping the EU united, we have to mention the new multi-annual budget of the EU, called the Multi-Annual Financial Framework for the period from 2021 on. In my view, it is an honest response to reality. Europe will have to play a greater role in providing security and stability in an unstable world at a time when Brexit will leave a big gap in the EU budget. This budget will allow the Union to do more with less and tackle the issues that matter most to our citizens. We will give the European Union the means to implement common policies and address the wide range of challenges it faces, both at home and in the world. The guiding principles for the budget proposal were two: there must be no losers and no winners. Focus EU funding on areas where the EU can generate benefit and added value. To ensure enough flexibility to react to emerging needs and challenges. For example, the budget will boost Europe's digital transformation and simplify access to EU funding and hopefully cut red tape for beneficiaries. By focusing on the areas where the Union is best placed to deliver, it is a budget for Europe that protects, empowers, and defends. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever the challenge, internal or geopolitical, you will sense that my worry is that we are not going to be united enough. This does not mean, of course, that we should always agree on everything. EU's motto is united in diversity in the end, but it is important not to have a dividing line always in the same place. We cannot create islands of isolation. And in the complicated world of today, we also need to respond to crises in transatlantic relationship by standing more independent, resolute and self-aware of prominent place of Europe. In that sense, as a politician from the Czech Republic, one thing I fear most is this notion of East-West divide. 14 years after the historical enlargement, it worries me that many people in the so-called East still feel like second-class citizens. And I am glad that the Commission supported my plan to end, for instance, the dual quality practices, which deepen these perceptions. But the East-West divide does not materialize only in fish fingers. I am sure you will agree with me. We have to listen to each other much better, and we all have to remember that enlargement was meant to be a two-way street. The idea was not that we all become the same, but that we try to understand each other's stories and ideas. The truly damaging East-West divide can run in our hearts, not on our plates. I don't think this problem is of unsurmountable proportions, not yet, but we have to take care of it before it grows and divides us for good. While the EU has to focus on finding solutions to people's problems, we, people working in Brussels, Prague or Vienna, need to remind ourselves to remain focused on the big things, while leaving things that can be dealt with on the lower levels to the governments and regions or municipalities. I am confident that this is what many voters want. The politics of identity is back in full swing. And at this moment in history, the people seem to prefer national politicians to take the responsibility. And we have to respect that. And I believe this Commission is trying to do that. I am personally, definitely trying to do that. One thing that I noticed already some time ago is that many people feel hopeless when it comes to dealing with the giants of this world. Many people feel they cannot count on fair treatment when the other side, they have a huge corporate machine, either from the new digital giants or traditional ones. When it comes to the digital world, I believe the EU can be of great help to people. Justice must be present online the same as it presents offline. Similarly, I was really angry after my many meetings with the Volkswagen after the Dieselgate, because they did not think they owe something to European consumers, while at the same time paying hundreds of millions across the Atlantic. That was not fair. That's why I have proposed the New Deal for consumers to empower the people to deal with the challenges of the 21st century. One of the elements of the New Deal is the proposal for the EU-wide collective redress, so the consumers will be able to join forces to respond to unfair practices of the companies. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission strives to be big on the big things and to act only when it can achieve better results than member states acting alone. So we will better apply the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality. But we will also identify policies where member states could perhaps achieve better results and look at ways of better involving regional and local authorities in EU policy making and delivery. I hope that the Czech Republic will keep taking a proactive stance in Europe and on Europe, create new alliances and take its fate in its own hands. I can only remind you that not only EU isn't them, EU is also us. Brussels is only an hour away from Prague. Very few of my colleagues may say so. And I am happy that while listening, Mr. Prime Minister, I heard a positive tone as well in his speech regarding the membership of the Czech Republic in the EU and the need to work together on the solutions of really big things. The European Union is for all of us, and we all have a part to play in tackling the current challenges and delivering the benefits that this unique project provides for its citizens. That includes everybody here at this conference. But before we begin to engage and discuss, I urge you to consider the human dimension and to put the Union's values at the heart of this debate. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank again to Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Mr. Babiš, and to European Commissioner Mrs. Jourová for their speeches, introductory speeches. They've been able to set agenda for the next 3 days, so I'm absolutely sure that in our deliberations we will take upon, maybe we will challenge what was said, and at the end we will have the recommendations how to proceed. Now it's time for a very short break until 2 p.m. where we will gather for the first panel session of the Prague European Summit. Thank you.